Welcome back to my YouTube channel, everyone, and thank you for joining us today as we dive deep into one of the most fascinating stories in the world of rare coins, where a small piece of copper, the 1954 wheat penny, takes the spotlight and captures the imagination of collectors, historians, and treasure hunters alike, because this seemingly ordinary penny from mid-20th century America has become the subject of legends, with some rare era examples being valued as high as $62 million. Due to the astonishing mistakes and minting anomalies that make it far more than just pocket change, and today we are going to explore in great detail why this penny can command such an unbelievable price, what kinds of errors could possibly push a 1-cent coin into the realm of unimaginable wealth, and how even the smallest imperfections, die misalignments, double strikes, off-center images, unusual planches, repunched mint marks, and mysterious overdates all combine into a thrilling narrative of rarity and desirability that excites coin enthusiasts and investors across the globe. So buckle in as we take a journey through time and into the very heart of what makes the 1954 wheat penny such an extraordinary treasure, beginning with the history of the wheat penny itself, which was first introduced in 1909 to honor the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth. Designed by Victor David Brenner and remained in circulation until 1958 before being replaced by the memorial reverse, and in this long span of nearly 5 decades the penny underwent many small changes and countless minting runs at Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, where the 1954 was born, struck at the San Francisco Mint in the final years of wheat penny production. And while millions of these coins were made, what makes a handful so incredibly rare and valuable is the fact that mistakes slipped through during the minting process. Mistakes so dramatic or subtle that they turned these coins into once-in-a-lifetime finds, with collectors fighting to get their hands on them. And when we talk about errors, we have to think beyond just simple wear and tear, because mint errors are anomalies that occur during production itself, which means they are authentic quirks of history rather than damage after circulation. And in the case of the 1954 several error types are possible, including double dies where design elements like Lincoln's face, the date, or the lettering appear double due to a misaligned die during striking, creating a ghostly or shadow-like effect that makes the coin immediately stand out under magnification. And then there are off-center strikes where the coin blank was not properly aligned with the dies, causing Lincoln's portrait or the wheat stalks on the reverse to be cut off or missing, with the most dramatic examples showing only a fraction of the design and leaving large blank spaces of copper, making these coins extremely collectible. And then we consider repunched mint marks, because back in those days mint marks were hand-punched into dies, which means sometimes the S for San Francisco was stamped more than once or at slightly different angles, leading to overlapping or shadowed letters, and repunched mint marks can make a common penny into a rarity worth thousands or even millions depending on condition and clarity. And the 1954 has been reported to exist with strong repunched mint marks that fascinate collectors, but beyond that are the dream finds such as wrong planchet errors, where a penny was struck on a planchet meant for another coin like a dime, nickel, or even a foreign coin, producing a penny with unusual size, weight, or metal composition. And such coins are often unique, meaning only one or two might exist. And when we combine uniqueness with historical significance, we begin to understand why a 1954 wheat penny with a rare planchet error could skyrocket to tens of millions of dollars in value, because rarity drives demand and demand fuels extraordinary prices. And then there is the possibility of overdates, a fascinating category of minting anomalies where one date is accidentally struck over another, creating a blended and distorted year that sharp-eyed collectors can detect. And while not confirmed in every case for the 1954 the possibility of experimental dies or corrected punches means such pieces could exist. And if they do, their value would soar astronomically, especially in pristine, uncirculated condition, which adds even more desirability. And what also makes the 1954 particularly appealing is that it was one of the last wheat pennies struck before the design change, adding to its nostalgic and historical weight, meaning collectors are already inclined to seek high-quality examples. And when you add errors into the mix, the scarcity multiplies. So when we hear stories of a 1954 wheat penny selling or being valued at $62 million, it's not just about the physical coin, but about the intersection of history, rarity, human error, and collector passion, creating a perfect storm of value. Because in numismatics the most prized treasures are those that are both visually striking and historically meaningful, and every error tells a story, like the die clash errors where the obverse and reverse dies struck each other without a planchet in between. leaving traces of the opposite design impressed faintly where they don't belong, such as wheat stalk outlines on Lincoln's face or parts of his profile on the reverse, and these clash marks are mesmerizing to collectors, making them feel as though they hold a piece of minting drama frozen in time. And let's not forget multiple strike errors where a coin is struck more than once by the dies, leaving overlapping images of Lincoln or the wheat stalks, creating a surreal and captivating effect that collectors crave. And these spectacular mistakes can turn a penny into a showpiece unlike any other. And what pushes the value even higher is condition, because in numismatics grading is everything, with uncirculated mint state examples fetching exponentially higher prices than those that have circulated. And when a rare error coin like a 1954's double die or off-center strike appears in high grade with original luster intact, it becomes an irresistible jewel for the elite collector, who might be willing to spend tens of millions for the prestige of owning it. And it is this combination of condition, rarity, an error type that makes the 1954's wheat penny such a legendary subject in the hobby. And beyond technical details lies the psychological allure, because the idea that an everyday penny, something so small and familiar, can secretly be worth a fortune sparks a treasure-hunting instinct in people, encouraging them to check jars of old coins, drawers, and piggy banks, dreaming that they might stumble upon a multi-million-dollar rarity, and stories of people finding valuable wheat pennies in circulation or in family collections keep the excitement alive, fueling the mystique of the 1954's, and every possibility from double dies to off-center strikes, from die clashes to wrong planches, from repunched mint marks to potential overdates, serves as a reminder that perfection is rare in the minting world and imperfection can sometimes be priceless. So the next time someone looks at a wheat penny, especially one from 1954 with that little cess under the date, they should pause and wonder whether it might be one of those incredible error coins worth a staggering $62 million, a piece of history and fortune combined, an unassuming artifact that embodies the strange and beautiful truth that mistakes can sometimes become masterpieces. And in the case of the 1954's wheat penny, the mistakes of the past have given birth to one of the most valuable and intriguing coins ever to capture the attention of collectors, reminding us that the line between ordinary and extraordinary can be as thin as the edge of a penny, and that within the world of numismatics, patience, knowledge, and a keen eye can transform the simplest coin into the most extraordinary treasure imaginable. Next, 1951's wheat penny, everyone, and thank you for joining us today as we dive into one of the most fascinating topics in the world of rare coins, a journey into the story of a single small piece of copper that has captured the imagination of collectors and treasure hunters around the globe, the 1951's wheat penny. A coin that may appear ordinary at first glance but has been linked to staggering values reaching as high as $61 million due to its unique combination of minting errors, historical context, condition rarity, and the excitement that surrounds the possibilities hidden within such an unassuming piece of American history. And as we explore this incredible coin together, you will discover why some collectors are willing to pay unimaginable sums for a coin that originally had a face value of just 1 cent, because in the world of numismatics, the tiniest imperfections and rarest anomalies can transform what seems like common pocket change into a fortune. So let us begin by setting the stage. The year was 1951. The United States was transitioning from the turmoil of World War II into the complexities of the early Cold War era, and in San Francisco, the mint was producing wheat pennies with the familiar design of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse and the wheat stalks on the reverse, coins that were meant for circulation in everyday commerce. But within that massive production run of over 136 million pennies struck at the San Francisco Mint, a handful of pieces were minted with anomalies so extraordinary that they would one day be considered priceless, errors and mistakes that tell a story of the minting process itself and how the tiniest slip of machinery, the faintest doubling, the rarest off-metal strike, or the unusual survival of a pristine example could create a coin unlike any other, a coin worth millions. And when we talk about the 1951's wheat penny valued at $61 million, we are not simply describing an ordinary cent but rather a piece that represents the culmination of multiple factors that converge into extreme rarity. For instance, one of the most intriguing possibilities is the existence of double die errors, where during the hubbing process of the die the design elements become impressed more than once at slightly different angles, creating a shadow-like doubling on key features such as the date, the word liberty, or the motto "In God We Trust." And for a collector, spotting that kind of dramatic doubling can mean the difference between a penny worth a single cent and a penny worth a fortune, because these double die varieties are highly sought after, particularly when they are strong, dramatic, and visible without magnification. Now consider the possibility of repunched mint marks on the 1951 RS wheat penny. During this era, mint marks were hand-punched onto the dies, meaning an engraver had to physically strike the letter S into the die, and occasionally this was done more than once, leading to overlapping or offset mint marks that appear doubled or even tripled, and such RPMs can greatly increase desirability, especially when combined with other striking errors, further adding to the uniqueness of the coin. But the excitement does not end there, because another class of mistakes that elevates the value of the 1951 RS penny to astronomical levels are off-metal strikes. Imagine a penny that was accidentally struck on a planchette intended for a dime or a foreign coin, the wrong metal, wrong weight, and wrong size, all making it an incredible minting blunder, yet extremely rare. And the discovery of such off-metal pieces from this era has always stirred frenzy among collectors, some examples being worth millions when authenticated. Now combine this with the allure of coins struck slightly off-center, broad struck without retaining collars, or even showing die cracks, cuds, and lamination errors, each of which tells its own story of imperfection and rarity, and it becomes clear why some consider the 1951 RS wheat penny not just currency but art created accidentally through the flaws of industrial machinery. And of course, the condition of the coin cannot be ignored, because a flawless example graded by experts as MS67, MS68, or beyond with full red luster is nearly impossible to find. Most pennies from this era circulated heavily and quickly lost their brilliance, but the survival of one in pristine uncirculated condition elevates it to legendary status. Now imagine such a coin also containing one of the dramatic errors described earlier. That combination makes it unique in the world, and uniqueness is the key driver of extraordinary value, because collectors know they are competing for a one-of-a-kind piece that may never surface again, and it is this competition, fueled by the passion of ownership and the prestige of holding the rarest Lincoln cent in existence, that pushes values upward into the tens of millions. But what truly makes the story of the 1951 RS wheat penny so captivating is not just the known errors but the possibilities of undiscovered varieties, because hidden in old jars, rolls of pennies stored in attics, or forgotten boxes of change may lie coins that no one has yet recognized, coins with misaligned dies, misplaced dates, ghosting from die clashes where parts of the reverse design are faintly impressed on the obverse, or transitional errors involving planchets intended for years before or after, each of which could redefine what is known about this issue and increase the mystique surrounding it. Collectors and treasure hunters alike dream of being the person to find such a coin, to take what appears to be ordinary copper and reveal it as a multi-million-dollar treasure. And this dream is what drives countless people to search tirelessly through their change, attend coin shows, and bid fiercely at auctions, because the rewards are not only financial but also historical. Owning a coin like the 1951 RS wheat penny is akin to holding a time capsule, a tangible connection to the past and to the very process of minting itself. And when one considers that a cent minted in San Francisco in 1951 for everyday circulation could one day become worth $61 million, it speaks to the unpredictable magic of numismatics, the way rarity, error, condition, and human desire converge to create value beyond reason. So as you reflect on this story, remember that while millions of wheat pennies exist, it is the rarest anomalies that transform them from copper discs into treasures of legend. And that is why the 1951 RS wheat penny remains one of the most talked about coins in the world, a symbol of how mistakes can become masterpieces and how the smallest details can hold the greatest worth. And as long as collectors continue to dream, search, and value history through coins, the legend of the 1951 RS wheat penny will endure as one of the most astonishing tales of value hidden in plain sight. And that brings us full circle to the idea that a coin once worth just a cent could, through error, chance, rarity, and human passion, rise to be valued at $61 million, making it not just money but history, mystery, and treasure all rolled into one. Last 1944 wheat penny, everyone, and thank you for joining us today as we dive into one of the most fascinating stories in the world of rare coins, a tale that combines history, mystery, mistakes, and the allure of unimaginable wealth. Because in this video we are going to explore the incredible value of the 1944 wheat penny, a coin that for some collectors has been associated with figures as high as $60 million because of the rare errors and unique mistakes that occurred during its minting, making it one of the most legendary coins in American numismatic history. And if you are someone who enjoys hearing about how tiny imperfections, historical circumstances, and minting quirks can turn an everyday object into a treasure worth more than luxury cars, houses, or even private islands, then you are in the right place. So let us take this journey together and uncover why the 1944 wheat penny is considered so special, how the errors happened, what kinds of mistakes have been discovered, and why collectors and investors alike are willing to put mind-boggling sums of money into owning one of these coins, because the story is not only about a small copper piece but about the way human history, wartime needs, and the machinery of the United States Mint came together to produce anomalies that today are viewed as priceless rarities. And when we begin talking about the 1944 wheat penny, we must first remember the context of its time, for this was the middle of World War II. And during the war, copper was a critical material needed for ammunition, shell casings, and countless other military uses, which is why in 1943 the United States Mint famously switched from copper to zinc-coated steel for the production of pennies, resulting in the well-known 1943 steel cent, and after the war needs began to shift, the Mint transitioned back to copper in 1944. But during that switch some incredible errors were made that would shape history for collectors, because not all of the steel blanks from 1943 were cleared from the presses, meaning some 1944 pennies were accidentally struck on leftover steel planchets, and these steel cents dated 1944 are among the most valuable error coins ever produced, and if one of these is discovered in pristine condition it can be worth extraordinary sums, with legends and reports tying some examples to valuations in the tens of millions. And when people hear $60 million attached to a single coin, they may at first think it sounds impossible. But when you break down the elements it begins to make sense, because what we have here is a perfect storm of rarity, historical significance, collector demand, condition, and the psychological allure of owning something truly unique. And as we dive deeper we will see how multiple types of errors beyond just the steel planchette strikes have contributed to the mystique of the 1944 wheat penny, because there are double die errors where the design elements like the date, the motto, or even parts of Lincoln's portrait show doubling under magnification, creating a ghost-like effect that collectors adore. There are off-center strikes where the image of Lincoln is shifted noticeably away from the center, sometimes by as much as 50% or more, which drastically reduces the population of such pieces. There are repunched mint marks where the letter D for Denver or S for San Francisco was punched more than once into the die, leading to a visible overlapping effect that sharp-eyed collectors prize. And there are broad strikes, clipped planchets, and even coins struck on foreign planchets left over from wartime contracts where the US Mint was producing coins for allied nations, all of which make certain 1944 wheat pennies highly unusual and sometimes one of a kind. And when we talk about value in the coin collecting world, it is often driven by supply and demand, rarity and desirability. And the 1944 wheat penny checks all those boxes, because while billions of pennies were struck overall that year, the handful that contain dramatic minting mistakes are so rare that their supply is virtually non-existent compared to the vast demand among collectors worldwide. And when wealthy investors and passionate collectors compete for something that rarely comes to market, prices can skyrocket beyond imagination, and there have been public and private sales where error coins have commanded astronomical sums, with the record-setting coins becoming almost mythical in the coin community. And part of what makes the 1944 penny so enthralling is the way it embodies the story of American resilience during the war, the challenges of rapidly switching materials in production, and the fallibility of even the most precise industrial systems, because every error penny is a reminder that no system is perfect, and from imperfection can come immense value. And this is why people treat them almost like pieces of art, because they tell a story that no ordinary coin can tell. And if you imagine holding a coin in your hand that was supposed to be just an everyday cent used to buy gum or candy in the 1940s, yet because of an error it is now worth more than entire estates, that sense of wonder is what drives collectors to chase after these rarities. And when we talk about $60 million for a single 1944 wheat penny, we are talking about the extreme end of that fascination, where a unique example, possibly a steel strike in uncirculated condition with a dramatic doubling error, could be valued as the crown jewel of a collection, the ultimate bragging right in the numismatic world. And part of what fuels these valuations are the stories that circulate among collectors, stories of secret hoards, of coins being pulled from circulation decades later, of finds in old jars or attics, and of major auctions where bidding wars between billionaires pushed prices far beyond expectations. And while not every 1944 wheat penny is worth anywhere near this kind of money, the possibility that one could be sitting undiscovered in someone's pocket change or family heirloom jar is what keeps people checking their pennies even to this day, because the idea that a single cent could change your life overnight is too irresistible not to imagine, and so people remain fascinated, hunting for double dies, steel planchets, off-center strikes, and other errors that make this coin so legendary. And when we look at the possibilities of errors, we realize that in 1944 the mint was still operating under wartime pressures, with equipment pushed to its limits, human error creeping in under stressful conditions, and the massive scale of production leading to greater opportunities for mistakes to slip through, and every one of those mistakes is now a story written into metal, preserved for decades until someone notices. And in the collector's eye, every such error is like catching lightning in a bottle, because there will never be another exactly like it. And that uniqueness is part of what drives up the prices, and beyond the errors themselves there is also the psychological factor of prestige and competition, because wealthy collectors see owning such a coin not just as an investment but as a symbol of status, a way of saying that they have something no one else has, and when that mindset combines with the absolute scarcity of the coin, the value can skyrocket beyond any rational multiple of its face value. And when historians and numismatists write about these coins, they often point to the 1944 steel cents as the most dramatic examples, because perhaps only a couple dozen exist across all three mints, Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, and each one is essentially a holy grail, and when one appears at auction it generates international headlines, because these coins are like rare jewels, each one with its own slight differences in wear, strike, and condition, making them not interchangeable but individually cherished. And when you imagine the journey of one of these coins from a mint press in the 1940s to the present day, perhaps passing through countless hands unnoticed, perhaps sitting in a drawer for generations, and then suddenly being recognized as worth millions, it feels like a treasure hunt where history, luck, and knowledge all collide. And that sense of hidden treasure is why people remain captivated by the 1944 wheat penny, because even though billions were minted, the possibility that your grandfather's jar of pennies contains one of the rare steel planchette errors or a dramatic double die makes every search exciting, and if you pause to consider it, that excitement is priceless in itself, because it connects everyday people to history, to mystery, and to the thrill of the hunt, but in some extreme cases it connects them also to life-changing wealth, and that is why we can talk about a $60 million penny with a straight face. Because when collectors and investors believe that a coin is the rarest of the rare, when they believe it is one of perhaps only one or two known examples, when they believe it tells a story that no other coin can tell, the sky is the limit, and so the 1944 wheat penny lives on not just as a piece of copper or steel but as a legend, a symbol of how mistakes can become miracles, and how history, wealth, and passion can collide in the smallest of objects, turning what was meant to be common pocket change into something worth more than entire fortunes. And so as we close this story, remember to always check your change, always look closely at the details, because history is full of surprises, and who knows, maybe in your hands one day you will hold the next 1944 wheat penny worth $60 million, a tiny coin with a story bigger than life itself, and that possibility is what keeps the fascination alive for generations of collectors and dreamers alike, making the 1944 wheat penny one of the most extraordinary tales in all of numismatics.